What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the Sixers Digest YouTube channel. My name is Barnard, as always, and today I'm here to break down some quotes from Nick Nurse. He revealed a little bit about his decision process to come to Philadelphia and join the Sixers as head coach. He joined the Pat Bev Podcast with Rone, where he had a number of quotes that got me excited, got me juiced up, and gave a little window into his mindset and his expectation for the Sixers. But today I want to break down his thoughts on why exactly he chose the Sixers job and some interesting comments that came out of that. So let's jump right into it and let's get his quotes here.
Was it hard? Obviously, you hear through the grapevine, this team wanted you this summer, this team wanted you. You turned down a lot of money.
Maybe.
Turned down a lot of money. I heard through the grapevine. What was your decision from picking Philly?
Just thought that the fit was right with me. Loved the ownership. Loved my connection with Daryl Morey, the president. Obviously, he was in Houston when I was coaching Rio Grande. Just heard nothing but good things about Josh and David, the owners, and obviously coached against them a lot. I think it's a good team. They have a very good team and some awesome pieces here. So here we are.
So that little chuckle and a maybe there is pretty telling in my mind of that he was offered a significant amount of money by a franchise not named the Sixers, and that he did elect that Philadelphia was his best choice. Cool to see a little bit of a window into why that is. He talked about his relationship with Daryl Morey. The NBA is a relationship-based industry that we see how so many of these jobs are the guys that they know or the guys that they've come across. Even look at a recent example with the Sixers assistant coaches, which I would be also broke down on a video, that like these are guys that they're familiar with, that they know, and that is how these jobs tend to come together. So it does make sense with Daryl Morey kind of recruiting Nick Nurse and them sticking together. By using my little detective skills here, I am going to guess that it was the Detroit Pistons that likely offered him that extra money. We know that Monty Williams signed a 6-year deal worth $78.5 million with the Pistons, which is the largest coaching deal in NBA history. I'm going to assume that Nurse probably got a significant offer either similar to that or even upwards of that, as he was regarded as the top coaching option on the market this offseason. Monty Williams, I think, is a better fit for Detroit as they're in a little bit of a rebuilding era. They got a ton of young talent there that they're just beginning to develop, nurture, and see what comes about it. I think Nick Nurse is much more locked in on winning right now. We know that he won a championship with the Raptors in his first season as a head coach there. He's a very expansive success record when we talk about in the G League, over in England, coaching in England. He's won at every level he's been at, which is impressive. That is what drives this guy, and I think that is cool to see. Nurse has also done a very nice job kind of making himself at home and in Philadelphia. He seems to be pretty active in getting out there, which I do appreciate in the community. He's made some stops at both the Phillies and the Eagles already. Here's a picture of him at the Eagles practice already, chilling, talking to Howie Roseman and the security guard. I believe his name's Dom. A little bit of an interesting story, that Dom character, for any Eagles fans that want to jump down that rabbit hole. So cool to see him making his appearance, making his rounds. He also gave a first pitch at a Phillies game that I want to pull up here. This is one of the better first pitches that I will say out of any celebrities, athletes, all these things. So often it's kind of a lose-lose situation for these guys, that it is not the best experience, not the best opportunity, that if it is a bad pitch, it does tend to stick to guys. We know examples like Floyd Mayweather, who threw a really poor one, things like that. But Nurse, I got to say, did give a respectable effort here. So not a bad effort with the first pitch. Cool to see him chopping up with the Fanatic, taking it in, taking the most of the moment. He even threw in the Craig Kimbrell elbow to burst that out, so a little nod to Phillies fans there. And he also broke it down on the podcast, saying that he was offered to throw a first pitch, I believe it was in Chicago, when Craig Kimbrell was in Chicago, and that he did not do the arm, even though a bunch of his friends were doing it. So he's like, I couldn't make the same mistake twice. Had to make sure I got it in for this one. So shout out to Craig Kimbrell, shout out to the Phillies, and happy to see that Nick Nurse has his kind of pulse on the culture and getting familiar with all the teams there. That was one of my bigger takeaways through the entirety of the interview. Is he does seem a very interesting and outgoing guy. The way that his brain works intrigues me a ton. I'm going to break down a couple videos on the channel talking about specifically some of the comments that he made regarding the usage of Paul Reed, the usage of Joel Embiid, and a couple other things there. But for this video specifically, I just want to touch on that. I'm very appreciative that Nick Nurse has still identified the Sixers roster as one that he believes he can take to a championship. Now, I don't know if it's exactly he's stepping in a little more than I think he bargained for. There's a lot more behind the scenes going on in this organization, and there has been throughout the past decade than I think Nurse is traditionally used to. Up in Toronto, it's a pretty stable up there that they've had a similar core, similar front office throughout the length. That has not been the case in Philadelphia. There are a ton of moving parts that constantly are happening here, and it's very frustrating. Just look at the James Harden situation, which has been the talk of the offseason, and it isn't going anywhere. That we still don't really know how that is going to be resolved, and that plays a significant role in Nick Nurse's outlook for the team on what he does. But there's still a ton of optimism. Joel Embiid specifically, I think, was the biggest lure that got him to Philadelphia. Nurse has never had a big man like Joel Embiid, a guy with the physical, the dominant tools that he has, the physical ability and just dominant skills, the skill set that he has. He talked a little bit about using him as sort of a Marc Gasol role of getting him more involved in the passing, more sets. Just this breadth and leaning into the creativity is what is exciting me the most, that he believes that there's more to juice out of this team. He even referenced last year that he thought they had a championship roster and talked about the year that the Raptors did win the championship over the Sixers, that he thought they had a chance of winning the championship that year, which they absolutely did, and that was a heartbreaker. And there were some funny jokes as well about the Kawhi travel and all the dialogue that goes along with that. But it is cool to see that he has that much hope. And Tyrese Maxey was another guy that he brought up and seemed specifically excited about, talking about the pace, what a hard time that he's had defending Tyrese Maxey. Both Maxey and Embiid were probably the two biggest winners of this interview as far as what they were thrown out. And Paul Reed, a close third as well. A lot of hype on the Paul Reed train. I can't wait to break that one down in this next video. But for Maxey and Embiid specifically, these are guys that the Raptors have struggled with defending on the other side of things. That Nick Nurse has plenty of experience. He's probably defended Joel Embiid better than any coach on the planet. So to now have that within the Sixers locker room is really cool to see. And Nurse kind of spoke also, cleared the air, I guess, if you want to put it that way, on the rivalries, going to bat with the Sixers in the past. He joked about getting on refs in a Philly-like way of kind of let them hear it, let them know. And he's like, I'm just going to go to bat for my guys. That's all I intend to do. And sometimes that needs to happen, which is cool. And there's a lot to like. I would say the interview as a whole made me very much appreciate Nick Nurse as a person, get a nice window into his personality, his outlook on basketball. There's obviously going to be much more that comes to the surface when the season kicks off. We have a more complete idea of what the roster is looking like for the Sixers. But I just want to go out and lay out that I do believe in Nick Nurse, that I think this is the right choice for a head coach. I think he has a basketball IQ that we have not seen around this franchise in several years, in several decades even dating back to the pre-Brett Brown era, that this is the first time that we have a true X's and O's basketball coach, that both Brett Brown and Doc Rivers, to different degrees, were brought in as personality managers. That with Brett Brown, the expectation was it was development, it was you let the young guys play through your mistakes. You're more of, I guess, the aiding them along, giving them a long leash, being a little bit of just like okay with the mistakes. Doc Rivers, on the other side of the coin, was more of the enforcer, more of the guy that was there to hold guys accountable, make sure that they're moving in the right direction with that. But he was still more of a manager of egos and talents and personalities, more so than he was the effective X's and O's basketball coach. That is why Nick Nurse is here now. That we've tried these two other things. What can ultimately take them over the edge is sometimes coaching does matter. For the most part, I think it can be overstated in the NBA that generally the best players win. They find ways to win, and when you're good enough talent as a player, you can get the job done. But coaches can absolutely lose games, and we've seen that before too, because things like managing the rotation, using your timeouts, calling up plays after the timeout, those are all key factors in a game, and such little difference can compound to make or break the ultimate decision in the game. So I'm happy to have Nick Nurse on our side for those specific reasons. I'm excited to see what his X's and O's tactical brain can cook up for this upcoming season. And overall, just cool to see him stepping out in the spotlight and giving a window into who he is. So shout out to Nick Nurse. Shout out to you guys. I want to make sure that you guys are subscribing to the podcast. As of now, 93.6% of the viewers here have not subscribed. So I want to get that changed. Let's get that number up. I'm here to be with you guys start to finish of this Sixers season. So thank you guys for tuning into this one, and I'll talk with you next time here on Sixers Digest. Peace.